same 30
It's
hours.
just the same thing we have.
On the agenda, be recognition of public. Ian is here.
It's just the same.
Fire department is here.
You've all signed in?
I have.
For discussion of the budget.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes dated October 22nd.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
And I also asked that at the end of the meeting we put on the agenda just to review our upcoming meeting dates, because, I mean, it's a ways away, but I had a problem in January. I just wanted to give us plenty of heads up.
Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies is not here. So we'll move right along to Neil.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
This pen.
This is the
Pretty
video.
good.
So in our normal budget situation, we come up with the last 2 or 3 budgets and then the last 2 or 3 actual figures. And then we sort of work from there. We have a budget, the trustees have a budget meeting. And this year we started with with one column with all blanks except a few of the figures which are fixed, like the debt service for the pumper and the tanker and so on. So we just sort of started from scratch and then looked at the different items and then started filling in the items. And so what we came up with at the first meeting was, it's under the heading Proposed 10-1. So that was our October 1st meeting.
I see. Proposed for FY14.
Yeah, so that's what we came up with. It was a larger increase than we really wanted, but we figured that we are running behind on some new equipment where the station is going to need to be repainted pretty soon. It's due. The floor is the paint is peeling on that. So there were a number of things that we discussed then, and then we went back and all thought about it for a month, and we had another meeting. And at that point, we came up with what is Alt 1115. I put a couple columns in there in case we wanted to come up with different choices. So that rightmost column is what we finally came up with.
The most current thing.
Yeah, yeah. And it so we cut the figure for painting the building way down. And we have something else to say about that.
Where's that figure, Neil?
It's just under building.
Expenses. Oh, it's wrapped in building. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So normally it's supplies, maintenance, repairs, and so on under building. And that pretty much was the. We cut back on firefighting equipment a little bit reluctantly, but we're sort of hoping that one of these years, maybe these grants that Katie works on for us might possibly come through.
I'm waiting on this one. It's killing me because they
Yeah.
made awards and then they stopped and said they'd resume in late October. And I'm kind of guessing that they're probably preoccupied with some FEMA-related stuff right now with Sandy.
No, we understand,
yeah,
but
frustrating.
it is frustrating to
wait and wait.
our Scott packs are getting to the stage where we really need to upgrade them, and it's $6,000 per Scott pack.
And just so you're aware, that was the entire application
Yeah,
that we submitted last time. Was I think maybe 15 or more full replacement of Scott packs plus cylinders. So.
We have 5 right now that are outdated,
Yeah, I know.
and that's
Huge.
a real big deal.
Liability. I know.
And, you know, with spare bottles, they're $6,000 a piece.
Mhm.
There's $30,000 right there, so we're really keeping our fingers crossed.
Better. If you have some prayers or anything. you
Oh,
can
we
call
do
up
that
on.
too.
Good.
Nowadays, nobody can go inside a building without a Scott pack. When we first got those things in, it was many years ago, it was just an optional thing. So that's essentially what we came up with. The figure of 197, 726 happens to be 10% more than last year. I did figure that from fiscal year 11 to 12, we dropped 24%. Fiscal year 12 to 13, we went up 10.2%. And this figure here is a 10% increase. The painting, we have gotten we have a possible painter who is willing to have us come up with the paint up front, and then he would delay his receipt of his paying for his time. So that would mean that we could spread it out over 2 years.
Well, one question about the painting, is it a want to be done or needs to be done?
It needs to be done for sure. It's not. It's more than want. It's been about 6 years, and but it's one of these. It's a maintenance thing that needs to be done. The building's not going to fall apart if we don't do it. But as you defer any deferred maintenance, things deteriorate, and so we have gone through and replaced trim that was already deteriorating, and so we did that piecemeal and did that ourselves. But you know, the paint does a job, and if the paint just goes bad, then the building deteriorates. So it's a good building in good shape. So you know, and of course we're talking about next fiscal year.
So when you're talking about doing it over 2 years, or at least having the payments over 2 years, you're talking about FY 14 and 15.
Yes.
And who's the painter?
John Cheslowski.
Was there any discussion about any, and I don't know what the liability issues are, but I didn't know if there's any discussion about working with a professional, especially up high, but some volunteer labor as well?
Absolutely, and I think some of that would happen too in this case.
Does the whole building need to be scraped, or it doesn't look like?
No, I don't think it
No,
needs
I
any
don't
scraping
really
at
think
this
scrape.
point. I mean, you know, once it goes beyond a stage.
There's a few places that need to be scraped.
Yeah, there are a few problem areas. We took care of some of them just by completely replacing the boards at that time.
Has there been any discussion about color?
I was just gonna say, may I ask what color it's gonna be?
Is there any flexibility to change color?
We haven't,
I'm just curious.
we haven't decided on that, of course, at this point,
Yeah.
and would certainly appreciate your input
Oh, good.
into it.
Are you sure?
We did find in the estimates that it was more expensive to change the color by about $3,000 more. I think more coats would be required, and that's the reason why it would cost more if the color was changed. So
You
we got
went to a darker color?
I believe so. That's
Yeah, you
what
put
he.
in addition.
That's what they
Yeah.
said.
Might bleed through some.
What's the life expectancy on the paint? Which type of paint are you going with?
Well, the building was originally painted with Sherwin-Williams Duration, and I can't quite remember what, but we were told at that time that it should last significantly longer than, and I can't remember whether 10 years was mentioned or
I was going to say
something.
you should get a good 10 to
Something
12
like
years out of a good paint.
Yes.
Which clearly has not been the case.
No.
And we also haven't made any decisions on it because this is budget, but we had talked about and discussed maybe you guys buying the paint, and you might be able to get it at a better price than we could through the town, which would be a great help. The estimates that we had were anywhere from 12 to 18,000
Just for the paint?
to paint it.
To paint it?
To
Yeah,
paint
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Not including the product.
And we
With the
have,
product
With the
and the
product
labor.
included. Okay.
right, we have put,
Professional firms
Right.
come
Did
in.
they pick out the, were you able to tell how much was labor and how much was paint?
No.
no, it was just a lump sum. We haven't got that far with
Okay.
it. But
Sorry.
in this budget on the building, there's approximately $6,000 in there for paint in the building budget. And there's also money in there for fixing the floor. Presently.
In that 11,000, there's 6,000 of it paint.
In the $11,000, there's
For the FY13 budget you're talking, or the FY14?
the FY15,
Well,
14.
The one in the column titled alternate 1151.
number one, yeah.
That'll be the one that we're focusing on right now.
Yep.
Okay. And the other 5,000 is paint for the floor? Is that right?
No,
Or-
it wasn't,
Or it's unspecified?
we had a figure in there to do the floor, but it was just general maintenance along with the floor.
We've been budgeting, well, in fiscal year 12, we budgeted 5,000 for the building, and in 13, 2,250. And, well, that's the two that I have here recently, so.
So my guess is you've budgeted as you've anticipated expenses to be incurred. And did we talk about this, or just among ourselves, the idea of creating a more level capital budget where you create some kind of sinking fund for budget repairs and, building maintenance? Like a capital fund as we do for equipment.
Yeah, right, we have, we sort of discussed that. It sort of seemed as though it would mean plugging in a really big figure to start, the same as the town did,
Yeah.
150,000.
Big hit, and then
And then you continue with that, but
Sure.
it was that big jump. We do have a, in the 13 budget, we came up with a figure for a small truck, for a squad truck, pickup crew cab truck. So that budget had $15,000 in it, and we're continuing with that. So that is sort of a capital
So can I
fund.
just ask a clarifying question about the cost of the painting? You said you had talked to firms, professional firms, they were talking between 12 and 18,000. If you have John do it, regardless of when he charges, what would the total be? Did he give you a separate quote?
I don't think we
We
came up
don't
with
have
this.
a quote from John at this point. We were just told verbally that it would be quite a lot less.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
He and Thumper were just sort of talking about it as a concept. And Jerry Baker.
Give him something to do to keep him out of trouble.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in light of those efforts, economizing efforts, it seems like a good idea to me, I will say. I'm sorry the paint has lasted so much less long than anticipated. I'd say it's kind of not a good ad for Sherwin-Williams. And I would think that, I don't know if we are being asked at this point to decide about the painting, are we?
well, it's in your
No.
budget.
It's in our budget.
Yeah, it's their decision really to include or not.
Basically, what we have in this 2014 budget is $6,000 towards the painting. We haven't gone to color or fixed prices at this point. And we certainly don't anticipate doing it until after
After what?
after this budget's passed.
After this budget's passed, so potentially you could do it this summer.
No, because it's not in our budget
It's
for
not
now.
in
I
our
mean,
budget this summer.
So it's the
Well,
next,
starting this summer will be the FY14 budget as of after July 1st.
So next fiscal year 14, you could do it.
right, okay, my mistake, yeah.
For the paint that's on there from Sherwin-Williams, is it worth going and talking to them? Like, would we use Sherwin-Williams paint again? And kind of saying, hey, here's the deal, you,
I'm not sure it's the paint.
okay,
We're not really saying that
okay,
it wasn't applied,
sure. You don't want to point a
Properly.
finger of blame anywhere.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
And this is the reason why my own house is stained. And you're, but what do you usually figure a paint job? I mean, don't you have to repaint every?
7 years or something?
Yeah,
So it was-
yeah, something along those lines. So
So it's not space, and it's right out.
I don't pay.
yeah, it's a
It's in direct sunlight.
there's no shade on the sunny side. So
It's still a disappointment to me.
Me
You
too.
know, it should have lasted longer, but it hasn't. And, you know, it's one of these things, you put it off, it's gonna cost you more in the future, because every year will bring more deterioration. But it shouldn't have been, but that's reality.
but
I wouldn't vote for Sherwin-Williams
I wouldn't either.
myself.
California.
it's not as though it's all fallen off or anything
No,
like that.
no,
It's
I
just
wasn't sure if that was.
we know that as it progresses, it's going to be less effective, and then you do have peeling and scraping required and so on.
Well, I just hope that when a color is chosen, that it's not based on simply the cheapest. I think that's how that color was chosen, that was on sale. That's my recollection, that
No.
wasn't how the, that's what I always heard.
No, there was somebody involved who decided that was going to be the color.
Yeah.
Personally, I like it.
You're so crazy.
Are you colorblind? Just curious. So-
No, I think it's different,
Yes.
but we repeat. If we put dark red, like the traditional, then you gotta have two coats. You gotta have a primer for a darker coat, and then you gotta have darker coat. You add to the expense a few thousand.
As a color, red apparently is the worst performing
Yeah,
color.
Especially
It
bright
fades,
sun.
the sun
It's
fades.
gonna
Fades real
yeah.
quick.
Why?
And that's what used to be there.
It was looked so great with that sign. That who did the sign?
Jason Evans.
Oh, did it?
Awesome. It's a great
Well,
sign.
we had somebody in Dummerston do the sign, an experienced sign painter, and
Dennis here?
and we were happy with the look of it, but it started fading almost immediately, and it just and it started looking terribly, and you actually couldn't even see it that
No,
way.
you couldn't. You couldn't.
So this is the same design, but Jason Evans is he's mostly in the excavating business, but he as a sideline he does
Great signage.
signs, and so he did a very good job on that, and
I love that sign.
you know.
Okay,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Can I just ask one question? The difference between income and expenses is 14,638.
As you can see, the first budget we came up with, we had income and expenses the same. What we've discovered in the past was that if we do not start off with a discrepancy like that, we often,
Go over.
because our money doesn't come in until 4 months into the fiscal year,
Okay.
that we were having trouble carrying that over. So now, with if we do something like that, then it means a greater likelihood that we're going to have some carryover money. This year we had to borrow from Dave Olson, the governor,
Sure.
and but only $20,000, and we
So-
didn't use all of it.
Why don't we next year, if you see yourself getting in that position, why don't we have a conversation? And maybe we disperse it?
We've had that conversation before, and we're told that that the town was in the same boat. So
There might, but I think if we had good
with
communication.
humor.
Sure. It might not happen every year, but
Yeah.
just to avoid interest, you know?
Well,
It's
this
not
year-
much
This
down.
year we borrowed
Sure.
$20,000 and paid $55.60 interest.
Can I ask, do you guys talk to other fire departments of similar sized towns? I'm curious about if a 10% increase every year is sort of what is to be expected in a fire department budget. It sounds high to me, just when I think about where we try to bring our budget in terms of percentage of increase. And so it sounds high, but I don't know if that's more normal in the fire department world than it is in municipal budget world, or it seems...
We found in the past it's very hard to compare one department with another, because some of the town departments, the trucks are covered in, and so what I've done is I've gone through town reports, and a lot of the expenses that for the fire department are actually listed under something else, town or something.
Sure,
So
of course.
that's why we've always tried to have everything in here. But so we get some anecdotal evidence from Putney. You know, their department is roughly our size, and Dummerston about the same.
But there was, back when Dan was captain in charge of it, he did a survey of, probably 10 towns around, and Guilford voters were getting a bargain. I think it
it's just good to have
came
that
out to
feedback. You just don't
$7 per
Yeah.
inhabitant or something, which is considerably lower than any of the surrounding towns. But you know, all this thing, well, it's like your highway department. If one of our big trucks has a few $1,000 thing that we haven't accounted for here and you can't anticipate, why?
I got a question right fast on payroll. 11-12, you budgeted 17,000. The actual was 13, a difference of 33.47. And then the 12-13 budget, you budgeted for 16, and you was at 13.7 with a difference of 22.50. But this year you guys bumped it up. Well, the first one was 17.5, then 17 even. Why such a high jump when you've had?
It goes back to when we had a half-time chief, and so our budget figure was raised at that time, and so then when we decided, well, when that no longer was the case, then the budget went down, but we did implement a policy to pay the chiefs and the officers a stipend. And
I think there's another factor there too. You know, the men are all volunteers, and they get so-called gas cards and so forth. I believe we increased that
but
proportion.
that's a different line.
That's a different
Which
line.
one's that?
That's
This
under
is payroll.
responder funds.
Okay.
But payroll is just going back up to where it had been in
That's right.
11-12. So it's not, it doesn't seem to me to really be that, like a big jump. It's gone up 1,000 from last year. But that it had gone down 1,000 from the year before.
So do they have to claim it?
Yeah.
Individually?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't do any sort of, you just give them a check?
Well, it's a payroll check,
Sure, like you don't deduct or any sort of,
withholding and
yeah,
Social Security.
Okay,
And,
so
I
you
mean,
do that.
that's handled as a payroll.
okay.
The responder funds is a sort of a reimbursement for fuel spent
Expenses, yeah, that's not
and
being
things
covered,
like that.
yeah.
So that's in a different category.
Sure.
Okay.
But we have taken some advice on that, you know, just to make sure we weren't doing something way wrong as far as the IRS was concerned. So
But I'd make a comment too about the payroll. Yeah, it does bring it back to when we had a full-time chief and so forth. But the hours that are put in by the officers are...
Not all your officers show up to all your training all the time, Fred.
What?
Well, I don't think that's what he
Yeah,
said.
Yeah.
but I understand that. But I'm just saying, first year you had $3,300 and you had
Yeah.
$22.50. and then you're bumping it up another 1,000 above the 16,000, and you had $2,250 surplus, but you're bumping it up $1,000.
Well,
That's what I was looking
Sure,
at.
that makes sense.
surplus
Okay,
comes.
I don't care who you're paying or anything like that, because you guys got to answer for it. I'm just saying, your surplus is showing, you've got more surplus sticking
Total
around.
budget.
Exactly.
Total budget.
So that's what I was looking at, Fred.
Okay, any more questions? We're moving along.
Nope.
We appreciate your hard
Yeah.
work. Thank you. And we want input on the color.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you for coming.
Next time, take
Anything but blue.
So is this
Laura,
the
maybe
number
you're
where,
getting back there.
is this number gonna change
You're
again, or no?
It makes us unique.
No, Fred, it's like the Stein,
we're-
you gotta
we're
let
not
go
gonna
of it.
Well, I mean, in terms of me plugging it into
Well,
our budget, this is the number I'm going, okay, that's what, all I need to know.
Just shut them guys up on the way by and come on up and see it.
Do you want me to come up here?
Sure.
Sure, have a seat with us.
Thank you.
And it's just, very small. You do have it, yeah. Okay, good. I have extra copies. Thank you for letting me come in. My name is Laura Smith.
Laura and Ann Ryder, our chair, and Jim Clark,
And I'm Troy Rivas. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
and Kate
You had a
Santana.
good chat already. Yes.
No, that's what
I am here, I'm on a mission to go to 27 select board meetings
Figure it out.
this year, which is
because
started out, it's very exciting and interesting. I'm intrigued by the color of the firehouse now.
You'll notice on your way by
What's
Athens.
important in small towns, right?
It is. So I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about Sevitz and to make a request that we are making to all of the towns. I don't know how much you know about Sevitz. Have you all had an opportunity to look at this?
Look at is the key.
Look, yes, okay. So very briefly, Sevitz started in about 2007. At the time, I was at the Mount Snow Valley Chamber of Commerce. Jeff Lewis from BDCC started it with a regional group looking at how to expand broadband and cellular, why we were having such a problem. We went about educating ourselves, talking with providers, looking at maps, et cetera, and really started to come to the conclusion that the problem was not really broadband, it was an economy that was not supporting expansion of broadband. Our economy had been deteriorating. While talking with these providers, we actually had an opportunity to talk with Fairpoint Technologies, who had come in prior to their bankruptcy. And Fairpoint has a belief that because they're a rural telecom provider, they need to invest in rural economic development. Hopefully this will help up their take rate for their product. It makes sense. So we'd met with their consultants a few times. They were working in New Hampshire and Maine, kind of at more of a statewide level. And here they were going around knocking on doors in Vermont, including their state store, and couldn't really find anybody to work with. And we were as ready as anybody they had met and said, we'll work with you. So we started a year-long process with them, ended up being about a year-and-a-half long process with them, 2009, working on doing an asset inventory around Windham County. We held a number of regional meetings and started to develop some initial economic development strategies.
So explain to me again, what's in this for Fairpoint? I understand why you shifted your focus from broadband to
Sure.
economic development, but how do they play into this?
So remember I said we had talked with a number of providers, so Fairpoint would be one of the providers
Oh,
for broadband
initially.
and cellular.
Right, okay,
Yep.
okay.
And when we had done that, we had the folks that we had talked with actually were their economic development consultants, a group called Vital Economies.
Okay.
And Fairpoint in the past had invested in doing economic development consulting in some of the more rural areas.
I see. Okay, thank
To
you.
improve the tick rate. Okay. So we went about doing this process, a number of regional meetings, and really their theory was, let's look at what we have. And when I said asset inventory, let's look at what we have, let's build on what we have. Are we maximizing and using it to our best advantage? We ended up with a number of goals after doing a lot of research about the data on the ground here, and started to develop an action plan around that. Some of the things that really became alarming to us were, while we know that there's young people, which is actually workforce population, 22 to 44-year-olds, problem. In New England and in Vermont, it's worse in Wyndham County. It's a problem. Average annual wage in Wyndham County, lower than the state. The state is lower than the nation. Wyndham County is pretty close to Maine in terms of average annual wage. So a number of our goals have centered around stopping the population decline, increasing the workforce age population, 22 to 44-year-olds. And also we ended up tackling and taking on the post-VY, Vermont Yankee, looking at what we're going to be facing when Vermont Yankee closes. Whenever it is.
Right.
We did not take a position on when it should close, but that at some point, be it next year or in 25 years, it would close. If it's 25 years, we're in good shape for where we're at planning. If it's 2 years, we're really behind the eight ball. So we have a subgroup that has also been looking at that, which kind of really makes the picture on Wyndham County even more dramatic and urgent.
So explain to me, Laura, just so
Sure.
when there was a Senate hearing last spring, which I attended,
Yes.
that was to share the work that your committee has done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So, as I said,
With the senators who were there to
Yes.
gather testimony? Okay.
Yes, yes. As I said, we started as kind of a grassroots organization. In the spring of 2011, we had secured through Senator Galbraith, actually, a $50,000 grant from the Agency of Commerce, and BDCC, which is the regional, I don't know what you guys know about BDCC, it's the Regional Development Corporation. They also pledged $50,000 towards the SEVITS effort. They formed a board and a legal entity.
Right.
They've affiliated with BDCC for the purposes of staffing and for financial management.
So when you say for the purposes of staffing, what
Yes.
kind of staff do you have?
One.
Okay.
Well, it's me, right. So they created a new position at BDCC.
Okay.
I'm the Economic Development Project Manager. And I started, or I was due to start, about 10 days after the flood. I was out in Wilmington at the time, so it took a little longer, and we actually have done a lot of work around regional business flood recovery since then. We have a number of grants that are out we're looking for. A little sidetrack. So, SEVITS has put together this year, we looked at our strategies and objectives, said what do we want to do. Our board is majority private sector and majority under age 40. And what do we want to do
This is a
this year?
different board than the post-VY study committee, obviously.
Yes, yeah. Stephen Morse, who chaired the post-VY subcommittee, is on the SEVITS board.
Okay.
SEVITS has actually started to develop doing work through sub-task force. kind of
Right.
effort.
And it got a little confusing looking through this just because the overlap in people. Frankly, I was,
Yes.
got a little
Yes.
easily confused.
Yes, well, and we hope to have it be even a little more, or maybe less, confusing. We hope to engage more and more folks at this task force level as we're going forward. We decided to really focus on workforce development because that was such a huge challenge that we were seeing here in Wyndham County.
Yep.
There are a number of workforce development assets, small training programs, schools, colleges, but in true Vermont fashion, they're very small and they're kind of siloed, which is not necessarily most efficient use of your resources. We are also finding from our employers that they've got jobs. They've got good jobs.
The employers do.
The employers do.
But they don't have people who can fill them?
No, they don't have people that are trained. So again, we've got this kind of mismatch with the workforce development and our employers, particularly around our precision manufacturing, some around our hospitality, seeing this kind of challenge. So we've started focusing there. We also started doing a lot of work. We've kind of been working in the last year on young professionals, building a young professionals network. Thus far, it has been a fairly social, kind of loose gathering. We're pulling together these folks from around the county. We've done 4 regional meetings. We'll be doing a 5th, November 30th. And we're bringing folks together. And we've had Pat Moulton-Powden from the Agency of Commerce has come and spoken with them. They had an opportunity to meet with the Speaker of the House. another small business person, and person who replaced me out in Wilmington at the Chamber, and also met up at Stratton. And so now that is also starting, we're finding some other partners, folks who are looking to develop with young professionals programs for that around workforce, and just, a network for these folks. You're not alone, there's other people here like you. We're partnering actually with Marlborough College. I don't know if you folks have heard about their Get On Board program that they're doing on November 30th on this social. It's looking at a lot of, I know in my town, and a number of towns that I've seen, both civic boards and town boards, it's really hard to get people to serve on boards.
A huge problem.
Yes, yes. And so this, Marlborough College has created this kind of test model, which it seems is going to be incredibly successful given the response thus far, to look at it's a fellow program for young professionals and boards to kind of do this 6-month trial, and perhaps they'll stay on and give them some comfort. So that's terrific. In addition, we wrote a grant last winter and received it through the Economic Development Agency, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. This was to do a CEDS, a Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. So a lot of people glaze over, right, and look at me and say, how many planning grants do you need? Aren't you guys already doing planning? This is authorized, certified, federal plan. It asks you to look at the whole county, look at your existing clusters, look at your workforce, look at your housing, look at all of these things, and come up with a regional plan, and also a number of projects at the end of this plan that are necessary to grow the economy.
Can I just ask
Sure.
why Wyndham Regional Commission isn't doing this work?
We are working with Wyndham Regional Commission.
But why are they not doing this work? Why do we need another group?
Wyndham Regional does not necessarily do the economic development
Okay.
piece in terms of businesses.
All right.
I will tell you that Wyndham Regional has been a part of the CEVID's effort and has supported and welcomed it since its inception. When Jim Matai was there, who was on
Sure.
the original kind of grassroots.
And Susan's on the board.
Susan is now
and
on the
She's
board.
the planner
Yes.
responsible for economic development, so there's that
Right.
input.
Is encouraging or facilitating small business development part of what you're doing?
Absolutely. Entrepreneurship in particular. So back to the CEDS, why this is important. In order for municipal programs or projects, other public-private projects, ones that come to mind in particular, I see in a lot of towns, water, sewer, could be broadband, could be workforce, Bellows Falls could be their bridge. In order to access funds from the EDA, you need to have a CEDS in place in Wyndham County. So
It's no different than our town plan on the town level. By having that plan in place, it leverages and gives you priority for more funding.
Right.
Basically,
Right.
that's how we deal with it on a local level.
Right, okay. And so we've gone out now, and we were awarded our grant. We've just gone out. We received 9 proposals to do this CEDS, and we actually chose the folks who've been asked by EDA to develop the white paper on best practices for CEDS, which happens to be Vital Economies, who we had worked with in the beginning. So we're bringing them back in, and we're kind of happy about that. We won't be doing any stops and starts with them. This is going to be starting to take place in December, and we expect will be finished. We wanted to be finished in June of 2013. EDA gave us till 2014. We're looking at probably September.
EDA, remind me what that is.
Economic Development of Administration.
Okay.
And that's under the Department of Commerce.
And so then, once you get your plan done, what's going to keep it from being a great plan that people applaud and it sits on the shelf? How does it become action?
Well, part of it is going to be up to the towns themselves.
So we're going to receive this plan.
Hopefully you'll be a part of creating it.
Right.
Hopefully you'll be a part of creating it. Hopefully that Guilford will see some value in this, that there are projects that they need in their town in order to help grow the economy.
Well, obviously that's what I'm getting at, is if we're going to make an investment as a town, we need to know what we're going to get out of this as a town.
Sure. So the CEDS, first of all of these things are going to happen whether you invest this year or not. And I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to say that, okay? The CEDS is going to happen. We really need your participation, and we want your participation. Young professionals, I think you will get something out of that. I don't know what your school populations are, but I know a number of them in Wyndham County are declining.
Yeah.
that directly correlates to this workforce population age not being here, not being as robust, 22 to 44-year-olds. Employers, hopefully raising the average wage. This is also not next year. You know, this is really the long view. You know,
Sure,
it's taken us
sure.
a long time to kind of get to the point where we're at. So I think infrastructure projects, workforce development, hopefully raising the average wage for your folks, and hopefully spurring the entrepreneurial environment throughout the county. That's what I would see Guilford as getting from here.
What are you doing for farmers?
What are we doing for farmers?
Yes.
So right now, Sevens is up here looking at pieces that really impact all of the different sectors. So workforce impacts farmers. Young professionals impacts farmers. The infrastructure impacts farmers. Through the SEDS process, we will be doing a number of cluster analysis, so looking at how different clusters, different segments of the economy, what they're like here in relation to the broader region. So to our west, you know, even to New York, to our east, to our south, and what are the opportunities that are there for growing, for entrepreneurial opportunities, for project opportunities. What are the things that we could capitalize on?
I assume you've got Wyndham Regional, not Commission, Wyndham Regional, help me, the high school.
Career Center.
Thank you. I worked there, I didn't think I could pull it together. Involved in this. When you said farmers, they now have a program.
Yeah, I mean, the farmers don't need inspired help, they need to make money.
Yeah.
And they're not making money.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like anybody really cares. And they need some help on taxes, they need some help on getting milk
Subsidies.
prices decent, they need some subsidies, and it doesn't sound like anything that you just mentioned is really gonna cover that for them. And if you wanna come to Guilford and help, that
Well,
would be.
that's true on the one hand, Dick. On the other hand, what do we have, 5 farms left in Guilford?
We should have more.
Yeah, we should have more, but we've got 5 or 3. I can't remember where we are.
Guilford's not alone in terms of, you know, that agricultural component. And
Oh, I
we
know
also
that.
know that
I
there's a
know.
very strong artist component in Wyndham County. And, you know, we've been actually very aggressively pursued by the artists, you know, artist associations, and hey, don't forget about us. We haven't gone into sectors yet. We're really looking at what, back to the vital economies, what exists, what are the assets that we have, and how can we leverage them better? What do they need? So, you know, what do they need to grow? So, emerging food, and I know that there's interest with we have, I forget his name, former Secretary of Agriculture.
Albee?
Yeah, he's sitting on our Workforce Development Committee. So I know that that's something that's always forefront in his mind. But we don't, I'm not going to say to you, we have any specific sectors picked out right now. We
So
expect that to
it's
come
not
up.
like you're ignoring, it's not like you're ignoring farmers, it's
No.
like you haven't looked at any sector at this
No,
point.
You know me, I gotta bring them up.
no.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Well, you should, you know, you should. It's
So
an
what are you
important
asking
come up.
for from Guilford?
Okay, so we are asking for all towns to contribute $3 a head for FY14. We are asking you to please consider including that in your budget. We expect that it will be a separately warned line item. Towns that have CDBG program income, economic development funds, or 1% funds, we are asking them to consider supporting us in FY13. The backstory on this, we went to Brattleboro first. Brattleboro made a contribution, or they made a pledge in FY13 of $50,000. They had that in CDBG program income. Do you folks all know what that is?
Remind me.
Okay.
Community Development Block Grant.
Right.
It's just
So-
Huge CDBG money in Brooks House.
Yeah.
Yes, well,
750,000.
sure, yes, yeah. That is a new
Yeah.
project. So old projects, so that CDBG funds that went to the Brooks House, when they start paying that back, I'm not sure if that was a loan or a grant, but if it's a loan, when they start paying it back, a portion of that will go back to the town of Brattleboro, and a portion will go back to the state. The part that goes back to the town of Brattleboro becomes program income. So because they've been utilizing the CDBG program for a number of years, they have this program income. This is where they pledged the $50,000. But they said to us, we will pledge $50,000. You need to go out and raise $50,000 from all the other municipalities in municipal funds in order to get the $50,000.
Like match it.
Sure.
Yes,
Challenge grant.
yes. So when they said that, this was in June, and we were moving forward with our plan. One of our big things, in addition to doing the SEDS this year, is to add some workforce development capacity to actually start pulling these silos together and doing this, what are our employers missing. We knew we were going to be short if we didn't have that contribution from them. So they agreed to front us the $25,000. So we have $25,000 sitting with Brattleboro, depending on whether or not we can pull this $50,000. And they understand. We were very clear with them. Most towns don't have those funds. This was the case that we made. And most towns and select boards are going to have to go to the voters, as they should, and really as we want them to. People have to be invested in this at the local level. There has to be both investment of time, energy, ideas, and funds at the local level for this to work at the regional level. So here we are.
Would you anticipate, okay, that's around $6,600 in the town of Guilford, would you anticipate that as an annual basis, or would it go up or down? Or?
We are anticipating at this point making that request on an annual basis. I will tell you that in next year's plan will include a significant private fundraising campaign. We expect the workforce development and the young professionals work that we're doing, that we're getting deeper and deeper into, to have value with the private sector. So I wouldn't expect to come back to you next year and ask you for more. I'm smart enough not to say I'm not going to come back and say less.
So it's seed money, basically.
It is. And
With the hope that the private sector will boost enough to offset the municipal component.
I believe, to expand, what we're doing. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot to be done, and
Administrative costs for this program?
right now the administrative cost is me.
You didn't answer the cost, though. You said it was you.
Our budget is in here. Our budget is in here. And what we're intending to do this year is bring on a 0.6 workforce development person. We've got a small pool of funds for accounting, legal, office supplies, et cetera, some printing, advertising, marketing dollars. We're not running too much of a gravy train, I don't think. We were lucky enough to receive grants again in this past year from ACCD, the Agency of Commerce, and BDCC. We don't know if that's going to happen forever. We're already hearing kind of some murmurs from the state, maybe you better not be thinking about that, And we actually think it's pretty important and in the state's best interest to be out ahead of particularly the VY issue.
We definitely to move along. We definitely will go to the people with it.
What's the process going to be?
Well, the two choices we discussed was a petition or the select board presenting it. I think, given the nature of the timeline, I think the select board, as you suggested, Laura, should put it as a line item.
Yeah.
That there would be a separate line item go to the voters.
Separate article.
That would be very much appreciated. I know I am going to have to do some petitions in some towns.
Yeah.
I understand that
It
process.
doesn't make sense to me. This is not a human.
Well, you have time to petition,
Yeah.
which would make it more.
I don't know. I would vote for the select board putting it out there. We still have the discussion at town meeting. People still have the opportunity, yay or nay it.
Yeah.
But I think the discussion would be appropriate to have a town meeting. And it'd be great. I don't know what your time is like that day, but it'd be appropriate to have somebody really presenting this clearly, because it's a different concept. It's a big concept.
And I mean, if you have a person who's on your board from Guilford, we'd love to
Ideally.
say they'd be at town meeting day anyway.
Ideally, yes.
We all should,
I don't think there's anybody from Guilford. Oh,
No,
Julian
I'm just
Swanson.
saying that, no, that's wrong. She's from Vernon, that's who actually.
Because I
thought
saw
I'm
it
like,
said
why do you
Guilford.
say
and
I know,
thought-
I said, that was
she's
my
not from-
mistake.
yeah,
That was my mistake.
Okay, anyway.
Well,
But if you have two Vernon people, maybe Julian could come to Guilford.
We're hearing that from
Yeah.
a number of the towns.
Mhm.
In
It's
addition
powerful.
to, obviously, we will have something printed. I agree, it is absolutely powerful. We're, hoping to
It's
also
going to be the
tap
amount of
into
money
that.
that's going to engender a good discussion, I'm going to tell you right
Yeah.
now. It's not a gimme at all.
Yeah, and we understand the value
And
of
it's a-
having that audience.
And it's a
then.
concept that people would have to buy into, the concept of looking at regional workforce and economic
we
development.
already have a commitment to broadband, though, right, to the school.
Yeah,
No, it's separate though.
that's separate, yeah.
So that's
That was a good call, though. I bet you that's the Sovereignty program, right?
Yes.
That was a tough sell.
Yeah,
That
it
was
wasn't a lot of
ridiculous.
towns. Wasn't a lot of towns.
Yeah.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you for coming.
Yes, thank you for letting me, and I
And if I
apologize.
need more information, I know where to go.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Shall I leave these?
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
mind?
Okay, no
That'd be
problem.
great, especially too if it is an article then to have
Yep.
that support.
Yep.
And if it's available on a website?
Yes, it's on sevens.com and it's in here. Thank you very much. A pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, too. Take care. We get to go home now.
No,
Gonna be quick, gonna be quick for the rest,
I'm
right?
asking too many questions, I know I can't answer.
somebody said it was a short meeting.
That I got.
Okay. Do you move on?
Yes.
Yes, we're gonna move right on to wastewater collection data because Ian didn't have his equipment hooked up over there, so I wasn't sure if he was with us or not.
This is the long awaited for and very tediously worked out agreement between the Algiers Fire District and Commonwealth Guilford.
Oh,
I'd like to make a motion
Thank you.
that we sign this. I don't know if you guys need to, if we can ask questions after it. I am intimately acquainted with this document.
60,000 gallons per day
Yes.
allocation.
Blah, blah, blah.
Allocation.
60,000,
Can
yeah.
you authorize the board chair to sign? Because my signature page is in that card.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the board chair to sign this document. I'm not meaning to rush this along. I would be happy to tell you about our latest round of meetings if you'd like to hear about them.
Do you want
Do you have any
No,
questions?
I'm good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Got a little round of applause.
That was a
Finally, how long has this been?
over a
Way too
year,
long.
right?
Yes.
Wait,
It's
wait,
been
wait.
about,
Yes.
but I mean, it was very,
I would say it's been
I've
over a year since you and I've been involved. Before that, it was going on for a while, and I frankly think
never.
I'd like to draw both your attention to the fact that Katie and I helped significantly make this happen. So,
I've had kidney stones that didn't last as long.
I know, you're right. So we pushed hard to get this going in.
It was a lot
And I
of
think
work.
the Algiers
Well, no,
Fire
I
District
think-
as
I
well
think
as
the biggest
Commonwealth was
thing
grateful
was-
to our efforts.
To get it done, that way it would help the Algiers Fire District and-
Absolutely.
and get things pointed in the right direction.
It was
And
just,
it
the
should have been-
forward motion was
That's it.
extremely difficult
Yeah.
because it's
There are a lot
hard.
of parties involved as
A
well.
lot of parties and a lot of legal
Adversarial ones,
representation
yes.
and things stalled out, fell into black holes, etc. So
It
I
was-
just give
yeah.
us frankly a pat on the back because we kept saying, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening.
Yeah.
So,
It was a tough one.
We all know you both worked very hard on this.
yeah,
Took,
thank you.
it took tons of time.
Because there is no way
The
that
fire
I had
district-
time to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
this-
As we are
Moving on,
currently
go ahead.
has
Moving on.
tons of
Go ahead.
time.
B-Trans Guilford best reasonable offer.
This is,
Give
I
me a
don't know
dollar.
why. Apparently they've lost the signed copy.
Didn't we sign this?
You did sign
2
it
weeks
already.
ago, or
You
2
did sign
meetings
it.
ago?
No, you
I'd like to
A
make a
little bit
motion that we
further back.
re-sign the agreement with V-Trans.
I second your motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I, I just want to put this as a little side thing that we don't need to discuss right now. I know we talked about it earlier, but at some point, it might make sense for us to get V-Trans down here to talk about a transportation enhancement grant or some way to deal with that little Algiers intersection there.
I
had a
thought we
meeting with
had,
V-Trans the other day.
I thought we talked to the Wyndham Regional, I
I
thought we asked Dennis to talk to them about that.
Okay.
Didn't
I
we
just
do
want,
that?
again, I think we did, I just want to be
There
sure
was
that we
the,
keep it, it makes me so nervous.
A guy came down to do other work in the area, who's the bike head guy and the sign guy.
Not Miriam.
For Marcos was his name, and I asked if Matt would bring him down to Algiers, and we walked the Triangle area to talk about the idea of getting a crosswalk, because once the housing is completed, there's going to be, and the store reopens, there's going to be a fair amount of foot traffic potentially crossing Route 5.
And people going 50 miles an hour through that village anyway.
They fly through there, man.
They do. In fact, he was pretty in awe of the amount of traffic
Yeah.
that goes through there. So,
Scott Newman nearly got taken out.
I
when he was
know.
standing in there,
I
yeah. Is there
know.
transit?
Mhm.
Okay, sorry.
So, long story short, the worst part is we'd have to recraft and put a sidewalk and everything in to get a crosswalk. I go, we can't just throw some paint on the ground.
However, let me just say one thing about that. If we put a sidewalk, AKA curb in front of the store, it would prevent a lot of the drainage issues. So if you
Definitely.
call that a
Absolutely.
sidewalk,
Absolutely.
curb, you would end up without the water off the road running underneath the store. Just saying. So,
But
and they would pay for it, I would assume.
It would be, we'd have to, and that meeting kind of, we could apply for a transportation enhancement grant. We already have a lot of the feasibility work done because we have site design and plans from Stevens and Associates, because they did it for the Tontine building and the master plan for the triangle, so that takes care of that part of Route 5. And the country store project, they have a site design and plan for that.
You need a sidewalk in front of that store anyway, that's just walking along there, it's kind of
Right.
dicey.
And then it
I
was,
know how you feel about sidewalks.
Gee, we're Guilford.
I'd like to see a sidewalk on Richmond, so I can tell you the truth, to keep people from parking there, but that's just
yeah,
my
that's not gonna
opinion.
happen though.
So at some point,
So
next
there was
step-
the discussion about how that whole piece could evolve, and there actually, I found another funding source that we could apply in tandem so that one could act as the match
Mhm.
for the other, so, but that's not.
20 years down the road?
Listen,
It's not
that's
20
it.
years
Let's
down
just-
the road, but
let's
it's not
just-
this year.
Let's just apply for a stoplight, let's put a stoplight in
Well,
Guilford.
the problem is, Troy, it's like, so I said to the guy, I said, you know, putting a crosswalk across the road, he goes, well, it needs to have accessibility and slopes and blah, 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 and I go, so it's better to have no crosswalk and get someone killed crossing the road than it is to put in a non-compliant
You
crosswalk.
go through Brattleboro quite often, don't you? How many people actually use the crosswalk?
I don't.
So why put one in?
I wait for the light and I just go. I don't put my orange vest on and sprint.
Yeah.
So
All right,
that's
I didn't
totally
mean to
off
open it up, but
topic,
thank
but
you.
no,
Alright.
so that discussion is happening, it can continue, but right now. So, yes, thank you for reciting. The next one, I keep going.
NRCS did
Yes.
a project.
Yep, it was paid and we've been reimbursed. There was that little 10% piece, which is $195-ish.
It's been sent on to.
What?
That was the
Are we gonna
point
bill
that we,
For 195?
Yes.
Okay, I
Who?
just wasn't sure if we were gonna do
Bill.
that or not, given the fact that it impacted the road. Trying to
I
get that
don't
maybe
know,
tough.
I just would like to say, was there a match for a town, did we match?
No, we sponsored.
Because I'm gonna tell you, in terms of man hours, we spent a significant amount of time, and I think we need to keep that in our, in our awareness and our memory, because
I
that
will
was,
never let you forget that.
yeah,
don't worry.
because Katie spent hours and hours and hours on that, well beyond what we should have
Exactly.
provided.
For a $2,000 project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it needs to be built though. I mean, he knew that. He knew it was gonna be built.
Okay, just wanted to be sure.
Yep.
Just crossed my.
I will quickly discuss the Humane Society Animal Task Force. I went to Saturday. It was sickening. Majority of it was about animal hoarders.
Animal hoarders or hoarders who have?
Animal hoarders. And some of the photos they showed were unbelievable.
So let me ask you why, as a town rep, you went, because how are we gonna be able to impact this
It
problem?
had to deal with, and you know, I got appointed unknowingly as health officer. So basically this program had to do
I
with
see.
dog officer and health
Okay,
officer.
yeah. Well, thank you
If
for
you look at
going.
that
I
and say the
can't-
health officer shouldn't be involved,
Yeah.
I mean, and it covered basically hoarders and also rabies. My diploma, just so you know.
We have total faith in you.
Yeah. So you have to go somewhere and collect 36
And
cats, don't call me.
It was 5 hours of class work. It was really disheartening to hear the stuff they
Yeah,
went through.
yeah.
General Highway Day update, they're still blowing leaves and grading roads. One of the trucks has track springs, they're getting fixed, Alan's truck.
Do you know that Northern Connecticut got a foot of snow?
Yes, they did.
Other
So
than that,
Alan's
I
truck
guess-
needs work?
Yeah, it's gotta have
I
springs.
think it was
Right,
done.
spring.
I think it's- okay.
I don't know if it's been done yet or not.
Nah, I think it's well, this morning maybe.
Okay.
Okay, the surveillance cameras, that hooked up yet?
I don't know, we got, that's my question.
You got the.
I have the invoice for it, and
Did I see
Danny
that?
wanted, sure, he wanted to charge it to building and maintenance, which kills his building and maintenance, pushes it over budget. So what I wanted to ask of you guys is to see if I can move some line items around to adjust that budget figure so that he's not creaming that aspect of his budget. Is that okay?
I don't see why not.
It keeps his total budget the same, it just moves the line
It's not
items.
coming out of, it's coming out of highway building and maintenance, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more than his annual budget is,
Okay, yeah.
so it would grossly overspend him, and he still has
Yeah.
half a year to spend. So I was going to work with him and figure out another item that he wasn't gonna spend as much on and do some shifting. So before I pay the invoice, I just wanted to do that to avoid a journal entry. So that's the invoice, that's the first one. And the second one is that this changes in chart of accounts. We had talked about moving rescue, and I did that. So it's not.
So it's part of our
in-
budget now,
It's
it's not in
correct.
the
It's been moved into the selectmen's budget, so you'll
Good.
see
Okay.
it there.
And we'll be good to keep our minds on that as it will increase our budget and.
Yeah, our overall budget will still
Yeah,
feel
but
the
will
same.
people- yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, but people's gonna look at it as general and, or selectmen's and.
Sure, they're gonna see big leftover last year.
No, the human services.
But actually, the history moves over as well, so they
Yeah.
won't feel that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it won't be as painful as it is. The second thing is I created an account called Emergency Response that we have not had in here before, and I took $1,000 from technical support, which I don't think we'll be using because of our reduction in network services. And I put it into this emergency response category because we have not had that. And for example, during Sandy, there were these expenses incurred that we cannot run through the VY, the RERP grant.
Yeah.
And where else am I gonna charge it? So I kind of took the latitude of doing that, and I hope
Well, it
that
makes
was okay.
sense. It makes
And I
absolute
think
sense.
that we
for
should-
I thought
clarity.
we had discussed that at one time
We
before.
did.
We've talked about it, but we
But
haven't
we
done
never
it.
did,
No.
okay.
And it kind of sets the stage that it's in place now. It's insulated in this budget, not an extra, it's a shift. And
Yep.
it makes us think about it. Next year, maybe it's $500. At least if it's something,
Well, not to jump off, thank you for doing that, I
So
mean, not
that's-
to jump off, but, you know, I mean, when Sandy, when that did happen, it was fully manned, we was
We were
fully
ready.
manned, we was
Yeah.
ready.
yeah,
I mean, we
We're
had
ready for
plenty of
Irene.
help. Yeah, we had plenty of help,
Plenty of-
and I mean,
Plenty of food.
oh yeah, that's for sure.
Alright.
and that's
Warrant.
exactly.
Warrants.
I'd like to make the following motions that we pay payroll of $10/28/12 for $5,714.52. Payroll of 11/4/12 for $5,553.26. Payroll of 11/11/12 for $5,449.39. For a total payroll of $16,717.17. Along with that, warrant number 8 for $2,987,932.95 for a total of expenses for this meeting for $3,004,060.12.
Don't choke on that.
I'm not, we had a monster one last time, but this is way more monster-er.
That's
Because of the
because
school
BUHS
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Guilford
Yeah.
Town School.
Should you withhold that sheriff's amount out of
It's
that?
not in there.
It's not in there.
It's
We
not
only
in there.
paid the flat rate,
We paid the flat rate.
Second.
so I don't know how we're gonna handle
I'll
that
take care of it.
additional.
I'll
Okay.
take care of it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Communications?
So just before we go on to communications, with the sheriff's thing, what are we, what is our strategy? To ask
I'm
them?
going up to talk to the sheriff.
All right.
And just make sure that we don't get billed for that. They have to have some cushion of non-contract budget that they
Well, I
would
was gonna
charge, because that doesn't fall under a contract.
Right, aren't we, we're just contracted for traffic, correct?
It's
Yeah,
just the payroll
basically,
coming
yeah.
separately. but here's-
Definitely, we are. Any other stuff we should be calling the Mont State Police, they are free of sorts. Okay, do you want me to blast through communications?
That'd be great.
Vermont Historical Society awarded an award for excellence in educational outreach to the Guilford 250th celebration. Dawn and Addie went up and accepted, and there was, so we're awfully
And there
proud
was
of them for
cake,
that.
no doubt.
I'm sure, there's always cake. Wastewater permit approved for replacement of wastewater system on Sugar House Hill Road. Wastewater permit approved for replacement of a failed septic on Stony Hill Road. Project review sheet, which we've already seen for Davis Guarino, subdividing off that piece of property. We received a letter from Quorum Navy, blah, 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 about the estate of I don't,
Emil,
is that Emerson and Robert Bannock, that there's some abandoned property and delinquent taxes owed.
Whoa, what now?
There's some,
Okay. Okay, where's this at?
I don't exactly know. I could find out
The one
if he's
that
looking up.
Penny was talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I only have the mailing address for Robert E. Bannock Jr.,
That
which
name,
is in,
yeah, that name sounds familiar, but I
yeah,
can't put it.
it doesn't specifically, and I don't have the letter that went along with this, she just gave me this letter. I think it was more, we don't really have anything to do with it, kind of falls
Okay.
under her. There's a letter dated October 24th from Bob and Susan Arnold, a letter of appreciation for the road crew's outstanding work in restoring River Road and Green River Road post Irene.
but not
And there's-
Sandy, this is post Irene.
Correct. Because a lot of mitigation work has been done down there, so I think that's what it's in reference to. And then there's also a letter dated October 24th from Bob and Susan Arnold, their reaction to BCTV's broadcast of the 9/24 Select Board meeting, which we are handling. That would be it.
Which we are what?
Handling.
I'm waiting.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second your motion.
All in favor?
Aye.